And we are back with the second part of our high altitude cooking series. I'm Mindy Turner with the New Mexico State University Cooperative Extension Service, your Curry County Family and Consumer Science agent. So we are looking at maybe that we need to make some adaptations in order for our favorite recipes, the stuff we really like, to turn out to be the best quality based on our elevation. And last time we talked about kind of how that pressure works and how you might use pressure to increase things, particularly with vegetables, liquids, stews, things like that. What we're going to talk about today is looking at our candies and our frostings. So the things that are a little more delicate, maybe that confectionery stuff, that it really matters how that sugar is processed and comes together to make that item. And our elevation, because we know that it changes the how fast and at to what temperature water boils, then it's going to change all of our liquids and how fast they boil. So we're going to look a little bit about how those things work together and what adjustments we might need to make. We do have a chart again. This was included in our newsletter. If you don't currently receive my newsletter, you can go online, curryextension.nmsu.edu. Click on Family Health and Wellness, and there's a place there, and you can select to get that hard copy in the mail or over email. Be glad to share that with you. You can also link from there to the publications we're going to talk about from New Mexico State University and our extension service. But this particular chart is looking at, for your candies, your frostings and things, how you need to adjust your temperature. And it also talks about the ball test, water ball test, and we're going to talk a little bit about that here in a minute. So what we're going to make today is just some caramel corn, just to give you the basis of kind of how we need to adapt, adjust, and what needs to happen. So in order to do that, y'all know I like to just start the video rolling and go with it, but we're going to kind of piece this one up a little bit so we can move over to the stove and look at some different pieces of the process to maybe start to kind of understand how that altitude affects what we're doing. Or better yet, just how to fix it. If it's not right, how do I fix it and make it right for next time? So I've moved us over to the stove so we can start seeing. So we're going to do for our caramel, I've got 2 sticks of butter in here starting to melt down. Seems to be doing a good job doing that. I've just got it on medium heat. And I'm going to mix everything together to make my caramel for my topping. Okay, so we're going to do it's 2 cups firmly packed brown sugar. Come out of there. Then we're going to do 1/2 cup of corn syrup, and you can use light or dark, just kind of depending on your preference. A lot of times with caramel, people like the dark because it gives it that more caramely color. But we're going to add some molasses in here as well, which is going to help with that. So we've got a tablespoon of molasses, and I went ahead and put in here, we're supposed to have, I keep mixing them up, so I double check, a teaspoon of salt and about 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. So we're going to take that out of there and add it in. And then we're just gonna mix all of that up. And what we wanna do, of course I gotta get my butter blended back down, so you can whisk it or you can just use whatever your preferred type is. I've got it in a 4-quart pan, heavy bottom pan, to start cooking it together. So we wanna get it good and combined, all of that butter mixed in there. Now here's the thing, when we start doing this with butter and sugar and making all these things for candy, you've gotta be very aware of what you're doing. This is not the time you walk away or start talking on your video. I'm bad about that. Because you want to make sure when butter starts to burn, when sugar starts to burn, it happens very quickly and you can't save it. I mean, it's done. So we just want to take and keep combining all of that together to get that butter mixed in there good. And we're going to want to bring it to a boil from this point. Okay, now this is where I'm always really tempted. Well, it's not going fast enough. It's not cooking fast enough. I'm just going to turn the heat up. And then what happens? We burn our butter, we burn our sugar. We can't save it. We have to start all over. So it's important to pay attention. Now this is where, if you have one and you choose to, it would be a good idea to use a candy thermometer. All food thermometers are not the same. Now, the temperature is the temperature. I've told you that before, but it's also, and a thermometer is going to measure the temperature, the same temperature. However, the safety of how you're going to use it. So for instance, the meat thermometer that I would normally use to measure the internal temperature of my meat is not the type of thermometer I want to use here. First of all, we don't want to cross-contaminate anyway, but just the idea that you would have to stick your hand down in here to hold it would not work. Most candy thermometers are made to either hook on the side of your pan, or they're longer, they're more cylindrical where you can drop them down in there and have it continue to measure that. So if you are using a candy thermometer, this recipe recommends that you boil this to a heat of 250 degrees. Now, at sea level, 250 degrees. So for every 500 feet you go up in elevation, you're going to take off 1 degree. So when I start talking about us being between that 4,500, 5,000 mark, okay, so 4,500, 500, that'd be 9 degrees we're going to take off of that. So rather than getting it to 250, because we know it's going to boil at a lower temperature, I want to get it to about 240, okay, 240, 241, somewhere in there. Or, as we talked about last time, if you don't have a candy thermometer, or I know some people choose to use their thermometer and do a test to be sure. Once it begins to boil, you can just pull off a little piece of that and you're going to drop it directly into just some cool water. What that's going to tell you is, depending on what type of candy you're making, and this is good at any elevation because it's the appearance of the candy. It's going to show you when you drop it in there, hey, it cooled it quick. Is my sugar too crystallized? Is something not, is it still going to be chewy? If I want it chewy, is it going to be hard? If I wanted it hard, is it still chewy? And then you can determine whether or not you need to continue that process on the stove and continue to heat it. So those are the kind of things you're going to want to consider as you're working on your candy. Okay, you can see in here we've got our caramel all mixed up. We're just giving it a minute to come to a boil, so that we can begin heating it to the appropriate temperature to put it on our popcorn. Okay, so I believe we've got this to where we want it to be. So if we were using a thermometer, we'd say, okay, yeah, it's right at that 240 degree mark. Let me set this out of the way for just a second. So here's our cup, just cool water, just regular water out of the tap. So I'm going to take this and get us a pretty good dollop, about a pea-sized ball is what you want to put in there. So you drop it in there and see. Wipe this off so we can pull it back out. Then when I reach in there, it's cooled it quickly to see if it's what I want. Okay, and so now it's a nice chewy piece. It's not grainy at all. Okay, so that's the big thing, is we want to make sure all that sugar's dissolved so it doesn't crystallize back in whatever we're making. So now that I have it where I want it to be, nice chewy candy, that water test showed me, it made the nice little pea-sized chewy things for me. I can use it, I can spread it out in a pan and cut it into caramels later, or as I mentioned, we're going to make caramel corn. So I have here, this is about between 16 and 20 cups of popped popcorn, okay, which is what this recipe calls for based on what we made for the caramel. So that's what's in this bowl. So I'm going to take my hot caramel, because obviously if I let it cool, what's going to happen? I'm not going to be able to spread it. I'm not going to be able to coat my popcorn. So I need it to be cool enough that it's not going to burn me and make a great big mess, but still warm enough that I can put it on my popcorn. So I'm going to take this caramel, whoops, turn my pan the wrong way, and just let that all run down in there. And then I'm going to toss this popcorn going to set this in the sink because I got caramel everywhere. And then I'm just gonna toss this popcorn, okay, to get it till it's all coated with my caramel. Now, if you like the gooey, sticky, hey, that's just yummy stuff, caramel popcorn, you can throw a little sea salt on top of this and pack it in an airtight container and eat it just like this. If you would rather it be more that candy coated, have that kind of crunch to it, we're gonna take this once we get it all coated and we're gonna put it in our pan, and you can put it on a parchment cover baking sheet and stick it in. I've had the oven preheating at 225, and we're gonna pop this in there and just let it kind of set and glaze over, and then we can pop it out of the pan and break it into more bite-sized pieces to eat. You can always add pecans or walnuts or whatever kind of fun things you would like to have within your caramel corn. Again, once you take it out of the oven, you can sprinkle it with that salt and let it have that nice bite to it, that little sweet and tangy, if that's what you like. Okay, but you can see our caramel is a good consistency. Everything worked out just like we wanted because we watched what we were doing based on our altitude. Okay, so anytime that we try to follow just that little bit of, we're gonna keep some to be the ooey gooey and just bake part of it, without adjusting for our altitude or our elevation to have that ready and done, things don't come out exactly right, okay? Because that air pressure has an effect on everything that we do and how we need to adjust. Again, the temperature doesn't change, but how our products react to it changes based on our altitude or elevation. Okay, so again, all of these charts and information that I'm using to show you are coming from one of our extension publications. This is Extension Guide E215, High Altitude Cooking by some phenomenal experts in the area. I'm just sharing their information with you. You can get these either by contacting the Extension office, 763-6505. Stop by and see us, 818 North Main in Clovis, or go online and you can get all of this information on our website, careerextension.nmsu.edu. I hope you find something fun to make. Get your frosting and your candies just right as we move into the holiday season.